Hey guys, this is Alex, and welcome to the Two Dudes, Brews, and Reviews podcast. On today's episode, we're talking about the 1997 Paul Thomas Anderson film, Boogie Nights. If you like what you hear, consider subscribing to the podcast, give us a rating, and maybe even tell your friends about us. With that being said, we hope you enjoy the show.
I don't want to skip over it because we will, but tonight we're drinking Sonder Brewing Hip Hop Friday. It's a sour ale with key lime. You had mentioned something about drinking margaritas.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Which is definitely not the move today. Not feeling it.
No.
But this will, I think this will scratch that itch just a little bit.
I only wanted to do that because of the scene with John C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg. But yeah, this is close enough. It's actually, it tastes a lot like a, you ever had a Lifesavers gummy before?
Yeah.
This reminds me a lot of a green one of those.
Yeah. Don't get started on candy. I'll fucking be craving.
You're going to raid my my cabinets later?
I have a problem. You know, Elizabeth's mom will like buy candy just to sit out for me at their house. I have like a Pavlov's dog where like
Yeah.
I'll get up off the couch and I'll hit the candy dish. I'll eat the candy in my hand and I'll make my way to the trash can, throw it away, go sit back down. 15, 20 minutes later, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. And I cannot stop myself. It's like right there.
Does it make it hard to diet or anything?
Yeah, the fortunate thing is I don't really go for candy outside of that context. Like, it's really just a weekend thing. But goddamn, like on Saturday night when I'm driving home tired as fuck, like I've got 700 calories of saltwater taffy in my stomach. It like fucking hurts. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I can't help myself. She's an enabler. She like even tells me like I'm putting this out for you. I'm like, why? Stop! I don't want this.
And you can't tell her no.
Yeah, it's like illegal. You can't do that.
It's your fiance's mom.
Yeah, I don't have much as far as like updates. I think the only fun thing I have going on right now is I'm going through Breaking Bad again, and I'm on the second season right now.
How are you enjoying it so far?
So much better.
You were only 16 the first time you watched it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had to have been like 15 or 16. I mean, I like watch it in the back of the car, like to and from vacation destinations. I remember that very vividly. I don't know. I just didn't remember a whole lot. And I think we've like had this conversation before, especially like on El Camino. Like there's a ton of stuff where like I just blank and I just did not retain that information very well. But Better Call Saul has left like a hole in my heart.
Yeah, it just ended last week.
Mm-hmm. And it was fucking amazing.
The finale was perfect for the show, really. It was true to the nature of what it had been for 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad I got to experience it. I definitely rode the bandwagon of the final season. I think I started the show like maybe a few weeks before season 6 came on. I think when you were starting to hype it up, or at least like the first few episodes.
It was a couple months.
Mm-hmm.
Really glad that you actually went through the whole thing.
Oh my God.
A lot of people give up after season 1.
Oh my God, it's so addictive.
Yeah, it is.
It's the best. It's the best show writing. The first season of Breaking Bad, I really enjoyed. Not a whole lot happens as far as like major stakes. I mean, that's very similar to the way Better Call Saul opened up, but it just seems so much smaller and a little bit more unsure of itself. But I've been enjoying the shit out of it. I'm on season 2 right now. I think I'm on episode 4. Tuco just got killed. I think I watched the episode after Hank kills Tuco where Jesse gets interrogated by Hank. I think it was the last episode I watched with Walter in the hospital from his quote-unquote fugue state.
It'll be interesting to see you finish the series, and then you can actually compare like how you feel between Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
I probably will finish it by the next time we sit down for the podcast because it's that fucking good. We probably will do a Better Call Saul review, I would assume.
I want to really badly.
It'll be on the radar for sure. I don't know when we'll do it. I know for sure that once I finish Breaking Bad, I know exactly where I'm going. Like I'll be rewatching the series again, which will be nice to refresh myself on those earlier seasons. And maybe once I reach that spot, we can kind of talk about when we're gonna shoehorn it in.
Be like a bonus episode, I'm assuming.
For sure. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll put it in somewhere. If not on the same night we record a regular episode, we'll put it on a week or something that we're off.
Yeah, I almost asked you if you wanted to do it tonight, but I don't know. Nah.
Let's we'll talk about it off the air.
Yeah, I like to take notes for it.
Oh, 100. I will write a 10-page essay and pull out my best paragraphs to just spiel out on. It deserves more time. We'll dedicate.
Yeah, I want it to be a good episode.
Well, we can talk about it on the air. Well, we can. I tell you what. Let's do it this way. Let's plan for it now. Let's not set a date. Let's not like worry about when it's going to happen. Maybe in our spare time, we can kind of like start writing down stuff that we really want to talk about. It should be a very special thing.
Absolutely. Getting through 6 seasons of stuff is going to be really difficult.
And we can take our time. I don't care if the podcast goes 4 hours, but I want to give good, solid time. And if we are going to do it, we really should make sure it's the best we absolutely can make it be, because we're not going to make another episode on the series. So let's just make sure we're sharp and ready to go, and we'll tackle it that way. That way we won't have to worry about leaving too much on the table and feeling like we didn't conquer enough on the episode itself.
Yeah.
Sound good?
I completely agree.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Lead me in, because this is your thing.
For tonight's episode, I recommended the 1997 film by Paul Thomas Anderson. It's Boogie Nights. Mm-hmm. It's his second movie. Directed this when he was 26 years old, which blows my mind.
He's a youngin'.
Oh, yeah. I think his previous movie was called Hard 8, and it came out a few years before this. I don't know exactly how old he was when he directed that one. I think this might be kind of a difficult conversation, because this is a long fucking movie with a huge ensemble cast with split storylines and random little scenarios. I guess I can start off by asking you, what relationship do you have with like Paul Thomas Anderson movies?
Well, it's this, and I've seen like the first 45 minutes of Punch Drunk Love. I got like 45 minutes in, and I just wasn't really digging it. And so I watched There Will Be Blood. And that's about the only familiarity I have with him. Have you seen Licorice Pizza?
I have.
And you watched it at home, right?
I did. It was okay.
Yeah. That's the only thing I'm really familiar with him about. I don't know. I know the film after this is Magnolia.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
After watching this film, I want to watch that movie, because I think it has like a similar format where split storylines that are tied together. And I think it's a little bit looser. Like the characters are not directly involved with each other. It's different storylines that are brought together by a central thematic quality. But
okay, that makes sense.
That's the only thing I know about it. It's got like Tom Cruise and John C. Reilly again, and Julianne Moore's in it as well. But that's the only thing I really know about him. He's a director that I'm very aware of, but he's somebody that I haven't really given a lot of time to, as far as like compared to some of my favorite directors, which is like Villeneuve, Tarantino, Nolan. And I have my blind spots with those directors as well, but for the most part, I don't know too much about the guy.
I don't either, really. I've seen 4 of his movies. Seen Boogie Nights, Punch Drunk Love, Licorice Pizza, and There Will Be Blood.
And you just watched There Will Be Blood pretty recently.
A couple months ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know what his stylistic tendencies are. I mean, I kind of get a lot of it from this movie, because Boogie Nights is like extremely stylized at times. It seems like the general consensus is that he's like one of the best directors living today. That seems to be agreed upon by everyone except for me. Now, I'm not saying that like any of the movies that I've seen by him are bad, but for some reason, I have a hard time identifying with them or like really feeling them. Boogie Nights is the one, though. It's the only one that I enjoy quite a bit. I've seen it 3 times this year alone, and each time I've actually enjoyed it a little bit more.
Okay.
So I actually think this is a terrific movie, but I'm interested to see how you feel about it.
Why did you pick it, though? Did you watch it as it came onto Netflix?
Yeah, I just saw that they had added it recently. We already owned it months ago before it was on there, and that's when I watched it the first time. I actually recommended it as kind of a Hail Mary, because last time it was my turn, I didn't really know what I wanted to watch. So I just thought, hey, I saw this movie a couple months ago, thought it was good, let's talk about it.
Okay. I will say, as a general viewing experience, I was extremely uncomfortable.
Why is that? Because it's about pornography?
Yeah, and not just that. I would say like a good 5 to 10% of the film is shot like softcore porn, which that like really, really threw me off.
Were you expecting it to be less explicit?
Correct.
See, I actually think this movie is less explicit than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
I mean, there's a few parts that are like pretty extreme.
I will say I'm just not used to seeing A-list actors in this particular setting, it was a little off-putting to me at first. I mean, it wasn't like distasteful. It wasn't like a director pushing the boundary in a way that was super uncomfortable for the actors. At least to me, it kind of threw me off a lot. It's not just that. Tonally, the film changes a lot.
God, that third act.
Yeah, that third act is something else. And not just that, like in the first act, I want to talk about like the opening scene and everything, and it's beautiful, and it's that one take.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
It's fucking great. And when it was happening, I'm like, God, man, I love like all these people are in this room on this wherever this set is being shot at. I don't know if it was in an actual nightclub or it was a set built for the film, but it was fucking really cool to see everybody interacting. The extras were perfect. I was like paying attention to them and seeing if anybody was fucking up, and
it felt alive.
Mm-hmm. And you get introduced to like your major players like in this opening scene, whether you like know how they're going to contribute or not. Like Mark Wahlberg's going to have probably the biggest role, but you get introduced to like all the minor characters first, which I found really enjoyable.
The nightclub guy, I think, is the first major-ish player that you get introduced to. For some reason, I cannot remember this guy's name. He's in a ton of stuff that I've seen.
I think he's a recurring actor in Paul Thomas Anderson films as well.
I know Philip Seymour Hoffman is as well.
Correct, yeah.
Been in like The Master, and
my brother's seen that one. I haven't. That's one I've heard of, but I haven't. I know it's a little uncomfortable as well.
Well, it's about a cult, so I'm sure you'll love it.
Oh, I fucking hate cults. I hate it.
I know that I said that I don't share the sentiment that everybody else does about Paul Thomas Anderson, but I'm still interested in seeing all his movies just to see what the hype is all about.
Luis Guzman is
That's
the guy.
right. That's right. And he doesn't play a huge part in this movie. No. I mean, he spends most of the time just trying to convince Jack Horner to let him into his movies. Yeah. I'm a Latin lover, baby. Like, I love all that shit. Yeah, I was reading about how they filmed this opening sequence, and I guess for all the stuff outside, it follows cars on the street first, and then it swoops into the nightclub, and then you're going all throughout the nightclub and seeing all the major players. They used a long crane shot, but they had a guy riding it with the camera, so when it goes into the club, the dude could get off the crane and start carrying the camera around. And they had a guy on set who would slap the extras in the legs with a ruler so they knew when to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't want them to turn around and like look for the camera or anything. So I thought that stuff was really impressive. And this isn't the only continuous shot in the movie. There's like 3 or 4 really amazing long continuous shots.
I just want to say, touching back on like that tonal shift, when we get introduced to Eddie and his stage name Dirk Diggler that comes later, I was really appalled how quickly everything seemed so fun and so alive. And when he came home and his mother, oh my God, his mother was just tearing him apart. And this is something that I didn't really understand why it was so over the top.
This is actually my least favorite scene in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the parent scenes.
That just made me really uncomfortable. That was like my first moment of like just feeling uncomfortable. And it's not like to me, it wasn't a poorly executed scene. It just, God, it was such a buzzkill. I know why that scene happened. Do you need enlightened?
Yeah, inform me.
I think, unfortunately, there isn't too much of... I don't think there's a moment in the film where... And Paul Thomas Anderson has commented on this exact thing himself in an interview that I had listened to. But there isn't a moment where it's like a big hoorah home run. Things are tied together extremely well. It's like more subtle cinematography cues. But the father doesn't play a real father role. He doesn't have much to say. The mom is actually an overbearing alcoholic. It's subtle, but she has a liquor bottle next to her when he walks in.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I think thematically the point of the film, and I'll just lay it out, is surrogate families. But it wasn't like really explicit. It never really had that moment. It was more like subtle dialogue and cinematography cues. Especially like the diner where Jack and Amber and Roller Girl, Eddie are sitting at. You get that camera pan with Julianne Moore's character of Amber being the mother role, Mark Wahlberg's character being the surrogate son, as well as like Jack as the father and Roller Girl as a daughter. I didn't get that though at first. It took me like a while to figure it out. And I think the third act really like brings that home a little bit better, but tonally, man, it's a lot to digest right out the gate. And then
It's very early in the movie to introduce the darkness like that.
And then on top of that, you're going to see Mark and I can't not remember. Her name's Heather.
Heather Graham?
Banging in front of Burt Reynolds' character, Jack Horner. Like, it's just a little off-putting. And it's not to say that I couldn't handle it, but it's unlike anything I've ever seen.
Not many movies are brave enough to tackle, like, the pornography industry like this. Can't really think of any others that would be, like, as, like, focused on this.
I think it's still tasteful, but I didn't know it was going to be tasteful until it was over. You know what I mean? I worried a lot about it not finishing in a way where I would feel comfortable. Does
it bug me?
Does it bug you?
No, not really. I mean, after watching Titan a couple months ago, like, I can watch anything. I've seen some fucked up
You're
movies.
Like, I'm a man that fucks, Austin. I'm not afraid.
I mean, I bet in 1997 when this came out, it was probably relatively controversial.
Oh, 100%. I think something of importance to note is that this movie comes off the heels of Pulp Fiction.
It's very similar to that.
I believe it was a 60 Minutes interview with Paul Thomas Anderson. I'm not quite sure, but maybe it wasn't 60 Minutes, but it was like a 25-minute interview, and I cannot remember that. I wish I knew the interviewer's name. He's very, very famous for late-night interviews. PTA, he credits Tarantino's Pulp Fiction with, like, really helping a lot of films get made.
Okay.
And I think this is kind of one of those films. I think the script is, like, the best thing going for the film. And, like, PTA had mentioned, hey, like, my job as a director is to have a solid script for my actors. And it's like, I have to step away and, like, just let it be. He's like, if you can show your actors a great script, they'll fill in the rest.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of his point. But, I mean, like, Mark Wahlberg was not the first choice. DiCaprio could not even see it.
No, not really. I couldn't see that happening.
I mean, he would have been young back then.
I think history also would have been changed dramatically if he did this. Because, I mean, he did Titanic instead. And that was kind of the launching point for his career. I think with Mark Wahlberg, it's good for him because this is his debut, like his first acting gig. Did you know that he was a rapper before this?
Yeah.
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, which is crazy. Not actually a huge fan of Mark Wahlberg. He's been in plenty of shit movies over the years.
He's taken on the role of...
He's like a Jason Statham kind of, like, generic tough guy.
The Rock and Kevin Hart. He kind of, like, falls in with the rest of them.
He's got a couple good roles.
He's, like, been on the record talking about how, like, he would never do a film like this ever again. And it is really dangerous at that point in his career now to, like, do something like this.
But at the time, he had nothing to lose, really.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just... he does have, like, really great range. But, like, I don't know, money talks, and, you know what I mean? You don't have to do a whole lot when you're in his position.
Yeah.
I don't blame the guy.
Did you think he was good in this?
Yeah, I thought he was great. He is extremely naive. His character is extremely, extremely innocent. And just speaking on his character in general, one of the more interesting things that was kind of in the back of my head while watching was... I really felt like his character was extremely feminized in a way that is, how do you put this without sounding like a dick? He is, like, thrusted into the limelight, obviously in the adult film industry, and I think it's really interesting considered the context of what you would want out of pornography. I don't know of many male porn actors off the top of my head. You know what I mean?
No.
And I think he is so naive. It's not something that I would really expect out of a male character in the porn industry. I mean that in the nicest way. I think he kind of gets thrusted into the shit really fast. His character is running away from his parents, similar to how, like, a female would run away from her parents if, like, say she was a slut, didn't have anything going on for her, didn't have any ambition, slept around, and, you want money, and your personality is that you're good looking. And Mark's whole thing is that he's got a big dick. I mean,
he's got one special gift. Everybody's got one.
I don't know. To me, it was like it kind of felt like the roles had been reversed a little bit. And I mean that in the nicest way.
I hadn't even thought about it in that way.
I'm just a fucking misogynist, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
I think he is really good in this movie. There are parts where I think it's a little iffy Maybe it's because Mark Wahlberg always sounds like there's a question mark at the end of every sentence that he speaks. And like going back to that mom scene, which I wasn't really a big fan of, where I thought like it was kind of goofy, where he's like, I'll do something, you'll see. Like, I don't know, like that turmoil felt like it came out of nowhere. Like the mom saying like, I bet you're with that slut all the time. I'm not saying the movie needs to be any longer than it already is, but it would have been cool or like nice to have a scene explaining their dynamic a little bit more.
I might disagree with you somewhat.
Okay.
There is that scene before at the breakfast table where I
Yeah.
think it kind of ties into a little bit of that. Like maybe he doesn't talk to his parents a whole lot. She's more worried about him getting an education than working. I think that tells a lot. And I think that scene in particular, to me, I don't know, it kind of felt powerful in a way. I might disagree with you on this, but
That's okay.
like her tearing the shit off the wall, it's just super destructive. And I think it is a good means to the end of getting him out the door. I mean, I think it does accomplish that. It may not have been like executed properly. Yeah, the movie doesn't need to be any longer though.
No, definitely not.
And I think you can't do too much because we have a lot of characters to cover. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we
there
do.
is a lot going on. You can only do so much, but he does feel like the main character, and maybe he does deserve more time. And you cut away from, I don't know, Buck. The stereo scene. Maybe that gets cut. And there's a bunch of footage. Like this film had different tonal changes, and it was more violent. They didn't know what the film was going to be until that final cut. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to pick from.
I would not cut that Buck scene at the stereo place. I like how the movie takes its time to give you funny little scenarios like that.
Very Tarantino-esque.
Very. Speaking of Tarantino, I actually find that this movie reminds me a lot of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for some reason. Like kind of a period piece where like focusing on this niche community. It's the golden age and like the fall, like the end of an era. And a lot of the time we're just hanging out with people. And I love that shit.
Speaking of the hang, the pool scene is fucking great.
This is so much fun.
This is like, again, one of those long-ass tracking shots.
I'm trying to remind myself of where it starts and where it begins. Because I know Jack brings him into the mansion and introduces him to like Don Cheadle. And then, of course, my favorite part, John C. Reilly.
I love John C. Reilly's character. His like reluctance to like give any information away so he can like one-up him in a way, I find really interesting.
I'm guessing that he's in the spot that Mark Wahlberg finds himself later in the movie, or like Jack bringing in the new guy, and he probably feels a little threatened by that. John C. Reilly plays like a toned-down version of the man-child that he always plays in the future, in like the Will Ferrell movies. Just like them making margaritas, and he says, "So Jack tells me you live on the street, or like you're homeless or something." Like I find that shit hilarious.
It's kind of weird to see him so young.
It really is. But he's always looked a little middle-aged, even at that young age. But yeah, this shot's great, man. It just keeps falling around, and like a whole scene will play out, and then somebody walks away, and then someone walks in a certain direction, and then the camera stops on somebody else talking.
Birdman.
It might be better than the Birdman cinematography because there's like no tricks here. Like I don't remember any cheap. Like the camera passes like a beam, or like a pillar or something, to where they could cut it right there.
The scene does get broken up eventually, but like watching the girl like dive in the pool.
Oh my god, this is incredible.
Yeah, like that was a great way to like pull back into like Mark and Eddie, Mark and Eddie, Jesus, so that's the same person. Mark and John C. Reilly, their characters, like you get to see how how the party has progressed a little bit, like
that bromance is starting to unfoil a little bit.
They're like jumping off the diving board. John C. Reilly like eats shit, and I think again you get like a little bit of a tonal shift. Is like some girl like ODs on cocaine, like right there.
This is so random. Because these are like nothing characters that this
Mm-hmm.
happens to. I mean, I guess it kind of introduces the Colonel, but I mean, how much does he really play out into the movie? Like, he goes to jail at the end, I guess.
Mm-hmm. This is his last role. That actor, this is his last role.
Did he pass away?
Mm-hmm. This was his last role. Was this also Burt Reynolds' last role?
No.
Okay. He's never seen the film?
He hates it.
Mm-hmm. Well, he watched like a loose cut of the film and then fired his agent and then never watched the film. And like, dude, he's amazing. I love his character.
He's fantastic in this.
He does play a great father to Eddie, Dirk's character.
On my first watch of this, when the movie is like is playing out in the beginning, for some reason I thought he was going to be kind of a bad character. Not bad in terms of quality, but kind of like a
antagonist
villain in a way. Because like all these people that are joining in at this mansion, they all have something going wrong in their lives. Like Buck isn't doing good at his job. Roller Girl is kind of, I don't know if she's kind of like being bullied at school. Like Julianne Moore has a drug addiction, and I'm thinking Jack Horner he's kind of predatory, and it's not until later in the movie where you learn that he actually has the best intentions. Like he really does bring this family together. Does he do one like really bad thing in the entire movie besides beat that guy's ass out of the limo later on?
No, I don't think so. And I think I don't want to comment. I want to make sure I get this out.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I just mean like I don't want to forget this point while we're bringing him up. But Jack Horner's character, his role as a father, I was trying to like pick it apart a little bit more. You mentioned like Julianne Moore's character as Amber has a drug addiction. She's supposed to be a mother, and like we find out later like she can't see her own son. Her son even calls the house at the party.
Yeah.
Mark's character of Dirk, his family's broken. He needs a mother and a father figure. They're all like bringing something to the table, and they also all have their thing that is holding them back from their other lives that they have led. And we'll talk about him too, but like Buck, he is one of the few characters that kind of seems like he has really good intentions, and he's kind of getting chewed up by this system that's in place for everyone else to succeed. And he's trying to succeed outside of this world in normal reality, opening in his own business and everything. And I was like trying to figure out what is Jack's thing. And maybe the porn industry is the only thing that Jack had found success at. But you can tell he wants so badly to make a real film. He wants to make not just a porn film that could be shown as a film, critically acclaimed and received well, and it would make him a real director. And I think he kind of plays that yin to the yang, or vice versa, where he's setting up this system for everyone else to succeed, but this is the system that's letting him fail a little bit in his own mind, which I found interesting. Not to get super deep, but as him playing the father role, it does feel like sacrificial for a part of himself for the rest of the family to succeed, as like that classic father role, which I found really interesting. Maybe that's me digging a little too deep, but his character isn't one that gets a bunch of dialogue by himself outside of like the editing room and like little meetings with the rest of like the producers and executives,
like the actors pitching ideas to him.
It was a character I never really could figure out until I kind of put him in that context.
I'm guessing we can assume that he probably was like an actual filmmaker, like but just didn't find success in any of that.
And that's great to leave open to interpretation. I think it adds more to the curiosity to the film.
Yeah. But yeah, he's great in this. I guess this is kind of a revival for him because he was a big 70s star. And then he went through, I'm guessing, a dark age of some sort where he probably got shitty roles or wasn't respected anymore. I've heard that Burt Reynolds was a big egomaniac. And that's probably...
I think he did not vibe very well with Paul Thomas Anderson during the making of the film.
He tried to fight him. I only read about this today, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, he hated this movie so much, and then he gets nominated for a fucking Oscar. So I wonder if that changed his mind at all. I'm sure he made some comments like later on saying like, yeah, it was good.
I have a question for you.
What's that?
Is there like a character that you don't really vibe with? I mean, there's a lot of them.
That I don't vibe with?
Or like something that's not working for you? I have one. Or I have like questions that I think would be great to answer.
Out of our main cast, I mean, not off the top of my head. I mean, I'm guessing there probably could have been more development for a few of the side characters because things are left very vague. But who's the character that you're thinking of? You're going to say William H. Macy?
No, we'll talk about him though.
Yeah, we have to.
I guess Buck. I didn't really like figure this out until later, but for a while I didn't really understand his role as a character. And I think one of the biggest things that really confused me was the donut shop scene.
This is incredibly random.
Yeah, it was really throwing me off when it happened. And it's on the tail of like Mark getting the shit beat out of him, like his character getting beat up in the pickup truck.
Because things overall aren't going like horribly bad for him. He can't get the loan.
And like this is in the third act, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like his character was like kind of confusing to me. And you get to see him throughout the film in small instances, like during the New Year's party where he gets to meet his future wife at the time. But I didn't understand why he was put in that position on the script, like in the film.
You're talking specifically about the donut shop scene?
Yeah, I think symbolically it's beautiful, but his character kind of felt a little weird up until that point.
He's just kind of there a lot of the time.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of characters like that. But to specifically comment on that character right there was like really jarring. And like that third act is so heavy. Like I said, being on the tail of like Dirk Diggler being in his low rock bottom. It was kind of weird. Like I was worried about this character because even the soundtrack was like it kept amping up.
Oh my God, it's eerie as hell.
I don't know. I guess I didn't understand him until this moment in the film. There's fucking like, it's so violent for this film. I don't think the film gets much more violent besides the raid, or not the raid, but like the drug deal gone wrong.
William H. Macy shooting himself on New Year's Eve. I think the whole point of his character, like Buck, is just that nobody really accepted him, because I think it can kind of be summed up by the line that the stereo boss gives to him, where he says like, country music, what kind of brother are you? Where he doesn't fit into like the stereotype, and it's not explored really. It's just kind of like, here's the side content for this random guy.
A fun fact for you. When he mentions the stereo, it has the TK 412, I believe.
The modification? Yeah.
I think it could be looked at in a few ways. It's a little bit of an Easter egg. This movie's set in that specific time is like 1970s. The year Star Wars came out was in 1977. TK412 is the name of the stormtrooper armor.
Oh, really?
Used it's like very, very deep Easter egg. But it can be looked at as an homage to that time period, and also can be looked at Buck's pulling jargon out of his ass because it's a movie he's seen recently because it came out.
Oh, okay. That's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Small little thing. I don't know how much validity it has in terms of his character actually bullshitting, but it is a little Easter egg. I love the fact that like he gets the bank loan denied because they don't want to work with someone in the porn industry, which I think was a really great way to stereotype.
Yeah.
And I think it's good for his character to be shown that there is a dark side to the industry. And like, we get that with like William H. Macy's character and like the cocaine addictions and stuff. But
this movie is very non-judgmental of what this industry is. I mean, like, really, if you rewrote the script and made it about something else and just had the same characters, like, how much would it really change?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a lot of the same pitfalls as if it was about the rise of a musician or an actor or something. Like, they would have very similar problems. I like that it's non-judgmental, though, because in 2022, sex work right now is, like, becoming way more respected than it used to be. I just can't imagine how it'd be looked at in 1997.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like, porn is such a taboo thing, but at least in the male population, it is something that's so prevalent. And also, it is becoming, like, less, how do you put it, stereotyped, or, I don't know, it's less hush-hush. It's more, like, on the front page of like, media consumption, especially with, like, the rise of social media and, like, the ability to, like, if you wanted to hear directly from your porn star, it's like, well, you get on Twitter, like OnlyFans, like stuff like that, where, I don't know, it's not as compartmentalized as it was, like, back even in 97, let alone, like, the 70s and 80s. Like,
this is the era of dark theaters, and if you move into the 80s and 90s, you'd have to go to, like, a back room to rent these videotapes. So fucking common nowadays.
Everything's, like, distributed on your phone, on the internet. Like, it's like Hustler. I don't know how like Hustler Hollywood's not out of business. You know what I mean?
We have one like 10 minutes away from my house right now.
I know it.
I've been in there.
I've been in there. Yeah, man. Fuck yeah. If I can go in there and
it's a little tacky in there.
Oh my God. I don't think I ever return.
No, I went the one time, and you scroll the aisles, and you're like, oh, like who buys some of this shit?
Fucking,
they're out there though.
White people.
Yeah.
Middle-aged people. You gotta add it. You gotta add some spice somehow. Anyway, back to the film. We talked about a little bit about characters. Maybe a character's not working for you, but is there anything like filmmaking wise that's not working for you?
anything filmmaking wise that's not working for me.
I don't know. Is there something about the film that you're not vibing with?
Nothing super major. I mean, I think sometimes the dialogue is a little iffy at times, just a little awkward or heavy-handed. I actually think some of the stuff in the third act, it delves almost into like misery porn, where like it's like we're just getting dark and shitty things are happening one after the other, and it becomes a little difficult to take in. And that might be saying a lot coming from me, you know? But it's like 45 minutes of nonstop misery.
When does this happen? Is it the New Year's Eve party? I think it marks the end of an era.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely when it starts.
Okay.
I'm fine with that stuff. You could have cut the stuff with Mark Wahlberg getting beat up by the hillbilly guys. Like, I didn't really need that.
I found that to be a little bit jarring and a little bit unfit. I know he's like back to jerking off in front of people. How Jack found him. Maybe not in that specific rock bottom moment, but I think it is a little much. I don't know if it's like trying to comment on like homosexuality and how it's
Repressed, maybe.
like the guy beats him up after the fact.
Because you can see it in that guy's face that he's liking it. But when his buddies show up, that's when the switch flips. So, I mean, it could be making like a mini commentary on something like that, but we didn't need it.
That was a little jarring to me. Even in the context of the film, I was like, okay. I do think the film does a good job of marking that end of an era with the New Year's party. And I think a lot of things had been building up into that point, especially with Little Bill, William H. Macy's character.
Yeah, we have to talk about this.
Did you notice the flub he had?
Yeah.
Okay, I caught this on the first viewing, where his wife's getting fucked on the pavement.
My wife's down there with an ass in her cock. Is that what he says? Okay, so they reshot this scene like 6 times. Every single time, even if William H. Macy got the line right, PTA would say, you said it again. Like, you said ass in her cock. And then he must have gotten every other take right. But then at the end of the day, he just chooses to put that one in the movie.
Yeah, that's fucking great.
And it's honestly kind of, it makes sense for this character.
In that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy's like trying to sit there and talk to him business, and it's like, do you not see the problem?
Like, my wife's down there getting fucked. And like his buddy doesn't care at all. He says, so anyways, this shoot that we're going to do. Like,
yeah, maybe he's fucked his wife too.
You know what? Probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
These scenes are played up as comedy too, until they're not.
Yeah. I think tonally that's a smart choice.
This is such a William H. Macy character.
Yeah.
He always plays pathetic guy very well.
You know, we can't really do anything about that true coat.
I mean, Frank Gallagher in Shameless, like, he's pathetic as hell in that show. He's great. I mean, I think he's really funny.
What I noticed while watching the film is that his facial expression he does a great job at showing shame and like inner turmoil really well. Like, that's like his acting strong point. Is just I don't know, the way he like looks at the ground. You can tell like his characters that he's playing are like just dealing with shit. Like, especially with when he's playing Jerry Lundegaard in Fargo and he walks into his boss's office talking about like the hockey game. He just seems so unsure of himself and like, yeah, like weak. He plays like a good weak character. I love that. He kind of looks like Alan Jackson, the country singer.
Oh yeah, he does. That mullet he's rocking in this one.
Mustache. Yeah.
I got the vibe that he's not pathetic in just the way that he's being cuckolded, basically, but I don't think anybody else really respects him that much.
Yeah.
The first time that we see him, and he goes to talk to Jack about shooting, he says, are we shooting for tomorrow? And Jack says, more like the day after. You know what I mean? Like, William H. Macy's character seems really serious about the technicals of these shoots, and everybody brushes him off at like every interaction.
Everybody's really passive with him when he's trying really hard. Man, I love when he kills his wife. I love it. It's so good.
And this is one of those long, continuous shots.
Yeah.
It's great seeing him walk through the house, out to the car.
Oh, man, the build-up.
Yeah.
Like, letting that build up is... Like, I knew when he walked away, I'm like, this is the moment. Also, just commenting on, like, the fact that your wife's getting fucked when you're trying to get your New Year's kiss. It's like, yeah, I'd kill her, too.
I guess when they test screened this movie, audiences laughed at the last time that he catches her fucking someone else. Paul Thomas Anderson thought that the movie was ruined because that wasn't the intended reaction. But I think it's way more impactful that you get that comedy, and then when he brings the gun back, it's like, oh shit, like this is a real like dire situation.
There's a character I don't want to forget about.
And who's that?
Philip Seymour Hoffman's character.
He's fantastic in this movie.
Oh my god. Not only like does he add to Dirk's character a lot, like I think it really helps drive home that fact that like he's the new kid on the block, like he's the new guy, he's really popular with everyone, and I think like that helps add that sense of awe and that wonder, like he's the new hot shit, like he's the new girl, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I feel like that's one of those things where I'm trying to draw into the feminizing, especially with him being homosexual, or maybe both. But man, him like crying in the car was fucking beautiful acting. Like it's fucking amazing.
I'm a fucking idiot. I'm a fucking idiot.
It's like comedic in the moment, just ever so slightly, but when he gets back in that car, it's like it's one of those moments similar to William H. Macy's, where it's like, no, this is real for this character. Like it has been played off like a tacky, cheap comedy callback, but now it's like, no, like don't forget these are real characters moving in your film. Like this is important for this character, and I don't know, the consequences felt really heavy for him, and I really loved his acting, and like just repeating I'm a fucking idiot over and over again. Like it's fucking good, man. It's great. When did he die? Did he die in 2016, 2017? It's been a few years.
I don't know when exactly, but when he died, I had never seen any Philip Seymour Hoffman movies, and everybody always said he's one of the greats. Now that I've seen a few roles of his, he
died in 2014.
Wow, okay. He feels like a real person in this movie. Like he just seems really dedicated to playing his part. He's fantastic even when he's like just standing in the background of scenes. When Mark Wahlberg and Burt Reynolds have their fight, and like the camera pans over and you can see him and he's like 10 feet away maybe, and he's reacting better than anybody else on set.
Also like him holding the boomstick, because he's the sound guy, when Julianne Moore and him are going at it in his first scene. Little things like that. And then when he's walking him onto set and he's got the pen in his mouth.
The oral fixation.
I'm like, that's really, really smart. And I don't know if that was a director choice or an actor choice on his part, but little things like that, where I'm like completely focused on his character when they're moving through that hallway. I'm not even worried about Mark.
Same.
It's really good to draw that attention for that scene where it easily could have been overlooked, but it kind of helps add that mood of him being like sexually aroused, and where like it easily could have been like the anticipation building up to Mark's first scene where like he wants to get it right.
Yeah.
And that was the scene prior where he like interrupts him in the makeup room. I don't know. I think it was really smart just to add that little extra taste to that character.
I think the Scotty character is also a great vehicle to get the theme of acceptance across, because he's also one of the people that doesn't feel completely like in this group really. I think that can be shown later on in the third act where Mark Wahlberg and he's hanging out with Todd Parker and all that, and Scotty is still hanging around these guys, even though I'm going to assume that he probably isn't a drug addict like them. Yeah. He just wants to be with the gang, and he keeps hanging around even when shit goes down real bad.
We kind of have moved away from Mark Wahlberg's character, but he is kind of beholden to this idea of performance, and it is like his big character flaw. That character flaw is what moves him to like separate from Jack. Like having him just standing in the mirror, and what does he say? Like, I'm a star.
Or he says, you're a star. I think he's talking directly to his dick. Like, the dick is the star. He's not, really.
I think it's good commentary on, like, male performance as well. You know, there's a statistic that just came out, and I don't know the fucking statistic, but I listened to a podcast on it. More young men are using, like, Viagra.
Really?
Yeah. It is directly correlated to, like, porn use, and the thing with you get desensitized to watching other people perform, and you're watching two people have sex and you're not actually having sex. And I think it would be more prevalent for people that are like in one night stands or like kind of hooking up, and like less for like people that are in long-term relationships where your sexual relationship does get more developed and you are more comfortable with people. But you like learn what you like and what the other person doesn't like and vice versa. And a lot of that is like male nerves, like not being able to perform under pressure. Like if you're uncomfortable and you're worried, and that directly affects like your libido and stuff like that's somewhat commented on. He ends up having like a cocaine addiction, which like ruins his ability to perform well. And I think he gets more encompassed in this idea of he is a star. He has like this reputation to uphold, rather than like when he first approached as just, I'm the new kid. Like, let's have fun. Like, Jack, you need me to shoot it again? I got you. Little things like that where, I don't know, he's been so ingrained and now he's just so worried, and that completely fucks him up.
He becomes a lot more of a narcissist as things go on. And like going back to the comment about it that I made about his dick being the star instead of him, he starts to focus more on like his own ego. I would like to talk about the first scene that he has with Julianne Moore, because I think this is like one of my favorite segments of the movie.
Fucking horn dog.
There's like a lot of great technical stuff in here, a lot of great dialogue. I love William H. Macy reading off the script. Like, okay, so-and-so does this thing, and they get it on, and then so-and-so goes to the bathroom, and they start masturbating, and like I find that dialogue really funny for some reason. What I really want to point out is when the film reel breaks, and then you get a POV shot into the camera, and you're seeing like the
frame refracted in the lens.
Yes. This is something I don't think I've ever really seen in a movie before.
It's fucking awesome.
I don't think his other movies are as stylized as this one. There's a lot of those like 90s quick cuts that I mentioned before. Like you get like a quarter of a second of like somebody sniffing coke in a film reel, and I love stuff like that.
I will say the film is very long, but technically the film is edited really, really well.
It's like perfection almost.
When I watched the film, I like took a few pause moments, use the bathroom, grab a drink, get a little snack or here and there, but it never really felt like that 3 hour. I mean, it's just a few minutes shy of 3 hours. I never like was super worried about the time, and I think obviously with rewatches it might set in a little bit more, but that third act, you do kind of transition to it really well off of like the New Year's Eve party, and you like start to fall into the despair and the misery that the characters undergo. All the stuff with like the cocaine and like using that as a vehicle to like chop and edit the film really well, moving scenes really quick. At the beginning of the third act with like when Mark Wahlberg's character's cocaine addiction has like already been established, using them scoring coke, coming in and out, like you can see time passing really fast.
There's like an elevation of the stakes where they're having a harder time getting drugs. And this is only 10 seconds of footage maybe, but you get the gist.
Stuff with like the award ceremony, that quick edit of him winning award after award after award. When that was happening, I was downloading that data of, oh yeah, this is where his ego's setting in. He's the winner. He has the ability to perform. He gets the awards. He's the most popular porn star. Everyone loves him. He's got his car. He's got his house. He's the man of the hour. And then like off the heels of that is his downfall, which is really smart. And it moves time really fast in just a few minutes, which is really great for this length of a film.
How much time do you think this movie spans? I know it goes a couple years at least. We're going from like 78 to 83 or 4 maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say like probably like 5 to 8 years maybe. Probably closer to 5.
You were talking about how great the editing was. I really love the montage when after he has that first scene and you can kind of see like it's going through like the reviews of his movies. You're getting this great montage leading up to them all on the dance floor and the camera is just sitting on them doing this like disco number. I fucking love that sequence.
Speaking of editing, I think something that was really interesting was the limo scene where you're kind of juxtaposed in between the normal camera and moving into the video camera that's like in the middle of the limousine. I found that like really nice. I mean, it's a small thing and it's not anything jarring for the film, but it's a smooth transition where everything inside of that video camera, it feels like the porn. I mean, it feels like the porn film, and it's what's happening. And then as soon as you step out of that lens and you're on your characters and our normal aspect ratio and our normal quality, things feel like sad and
this is
frustrating.
This scene is incredibly depressing.
Yeah.
And I mean, this all plays out during all the misery porn stuff that's cut between Mark Wahlberg getting beat up and Julianne Moore losing her son and
Buck in the donut shop.
Yeah, and like the music. God, I want to know like who composed the music during that section of the film.
I'll find out for you. I knew who it was, and now I don't.
You know, like speaking of like cutting to that like videotape footage, the movie does a lot of that throughout. Like, of course, we're getting like actual footage of the scenes, like the porn scenes earlier on with like the Super 8 footage, basically on film. I really love how the movie cuts away to just show you these long scenes that they filmed, like for the movies. Like the stuff with Brock Landers and Chest Rockwell.
Yeah.
which amazing names, by the way. Like, they didn't have to do that. Like, the movie could have gone without that, but I'm really appreciative that it's there.
I love, like, the filming locations as well. Like, the donut shop and, I don't know. I really love, like, modern architecture. Like, Jack's house is, like, a dream for me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that architecture. My fiance is an interior designer, and she'll never let me have a house like that. 100%, like, would never let me have it. She hates modern. She hates modern and traditional. So I'm like, what do you want? Like, which one do you want?
Like, Renaissance? Like,
I don't know. I think she is a big fan of, like...
Victorian.
Plantation. Plantation. I don't know how to put
why?
it. I don't know how to put it. Yeah, I don't know. She would never let me have anything like that if we ever wanted a house. But I love like 70s, 80s architecture. I love it so much. I love like how everything feels so, I don't know, compartmentalized. Like you have like your bar. When Dirk was taking you through his house, I'm like, God, I want to live in this house so bad.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Elizabeth hates that style, but I am a huge fan of it. I love how split level homes, she hates split level homes. I love cool shit like that, where things feel so like somebody smoked a cigarette in every room in this house kind of feel. I love that.
Dude, you're going to have to put the foot down, man.
No.
No?
No. That's not going to work.
I guess if she has a degree in it, then she might know what she's talking about.
I told her, you got to at least let me have a room. Just let me have a room for my shit. And from what I understand is that she's going to let me hang guitars and albums on the wall. And I'm like, I love you. And that's enough for me.
Good.
Like, yeah. But she's like, no, we're like putting like movie collections. We're putting that in cabinets. That is not going on display. And I'm like,
why?
A part of me just died a little bit. But you know what? Happy wife, happy life.
Hey, well, you can always live vicariously through me.
Correct.
We always have shit on display here.
I think she'll loosen up when she realizes how difficult it is to do shit like that. But
yeah.
In our forever home, I think you'll see things put away a little bit more. Or like the basement will be designated for that area.
Good.
Away from everyone. Yeah, she doesn't want that shit on display. She'd be like, ugh, put this fucking, this 70s animated film away. This shit's fucking ass.
Why own Criterion Collection stuff if you can't show it off, you know?
I'll have to build a closet.
I want to compliment the use of space during this third act low point where it seems like all the misery shit happens on the same block, at least the way it's filmed.
Yep.
Where the people that beat up Mark Wahlberg drive away and the camera's on the street, and then the limo drives by, and then the donut shop is right there. That was so creative. Now, I don't know if, like, logistically, in the logic of the movie, it would have really been all right there. But it's a great visual trick.
Yes, I completely agree. Like, watching that pickup truck peel away in the limo and then watching Buck's character pull into the donut shop. I really love his dialogue with his wife as well. Like, how's my little kung fu fighter doing in there?
It just feels like you're a fly on the wall, basically. I mean, when he goes into the donut shop, it's a long scene of him just picking out the donuts.
Oh, man. Through the point of view is through the back of the donut case. Really nice. I don't want to dwell on that scene too much. It's fucking great. Feels very Tarantino-esque.
This feels ripped straight out of Pulp Fiction. You just so happen to be here when this shit goes down. I mean, that movie is based off of chance or like random possibility.
Especially like Bruce Willis's character, like running into Mr. Wallace.
Yeah.
The cop that pulls them, that catches them is so happened to be like a fucking sexual predator.
Yeah.
Super weird.
I used to not like that movie until I realized that it was all about these weird random possibilities.
I had to turn my head away during that moment. I think I mentioned it before on the podcast, but when I watched that when I was younger with my dad, he was like, "Boys,
Oh, it's brutal.
you got to cover your eyes for this one." And then I rewatched it later, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm glad I looked away because my 14-year-old eyes would have been like, why is he doing that?"
You would have been ruined.
I literally asked my father, "Wait, he's a cop. Why is he a bad guy?" And he's like, "Son, not all people are good people, no matter what they do." And I'm like, "Oh, oh, fuck." Alfred Molina.
I was gonna say the one scene that we haven't talked about is old Doc Ock here.
Dude,
this is a bizarre scene.
He belongs in so much more.
Yeah, he does.
I love when the guns start going off. He's just like, he's just like running. He's so, oh my god, it's so wild. He really leans into the fucking chaos. I love it.
I think this would have been a very typical scene if not for the random Chinese guy that is just throwing firecrackers around. Like, this would have been regular as hell if that wasn't there.
Yeah. It adds so much. Like, the sound mixing of just firecrackers going off and Jesse's Girl being played loud as fuck and the dialogue being muffled. One thing I think is my favorite part about the scene, Dirk Diggler's character, it gets like 10 to 15 seconds of just his face. And you realize that he is noticing this is what rock bottom looks like.
I love watching Alfred Molina air guitar and drum all over this scene.
Yeah. Hit the crack pipe.
Oh my god. Doesn't he say like, "The shit's all the rage" or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, we are getting into the 80s. This is where like
crack epidemic.
Excess and drugs are getting real bad around that time. We haven't really talked about Todd Parker, the mullet guy, who I guess he's like the closest thing the movie comes to an antagonist. He is, but he's not really. He's more just like the bad influence kind of guy. He's there and then he isn't. I mean, he gets just blasted with a shotgun and like that's the end of him.
Mm-hmm. I love his character. He just like tries to have his moment and it gets completely denied.
It was so stupid.
I have a plan. We're coming here and we're gonna win.
I mean, they had it. I mean, they could have just walked away with that money, and then although the cycle would have continued probably if they did that. But yeah, this all leads to Mark Wahlberg going back to Jack. Of course, we get the great money shot at the end of the film with the prosthetic penis in the end.
I do love that moment where he comes back to Jack, and you do get kind of a montage of everyone's lives coming back together. Like Buck has his child, and as I'm getting older, unfortunately, anytime childbirth is introduced, I'm like,
you're extremely moved by it.
Oh my god, I want to cry every time. Every fucking time. I hate it.
Yeah.
I fucking hate it. I'm like, stop. I want to be 12. Like, I don't want to care about this.
It feels like everybody's lives are coming back together, but I don't think it's like a perfect wrap up. Like when you see the commercial for Buck's new stereo store, he comes out dressed up in hip hop stuff. Mm-hmm. Like he's giving away a piece of himself to have that success, like playing into a stereotype. You know that Mark Wahlberg isn't going to be back on top like he used to be, but they're all
comfortable.
They're all in a stable situation, but it's not like everything was happily ever after, like that kind of thing.
I do think Jack Horner, he does have that dialogue with Roller Girl, like clean your room, which I think kind of ties back into the surrogate family. He even mentions the Julianne Moore's character of Amber, which we didn't even talk about hers. Like she gets denied custody of her child, which is like her character's way of getting spat in the face and realizing like she will have to adhere to this environment that she set up for herself. We didn't really talk about too much about like Roller Girl and the limo scene, but it's okay. Like
it was like very loose type stuff.
They all have like their own weight that they're carrying around. It is better to like stay in this somewhat abnormal surrogate family situation than trying to adhere back to their past that they've already kind of fucked up, which is great thematically. He even mentions the Julianne Moore's character. His term of endearment is, you know what I see? I see the foxiest bitch. You know what I mean? It's like, instead of like going home to your wife and saying, babe, you're so beautiful, it's like, you're the foxiest bitch. But I think that's okay, like for these characters, and I think that's the point.
Is there anything else that we should bring up? I feel like we covered almost all the bases.
Yeah, we did a really good job for as we didn't talk about John C. Reilly's character is also a magician.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, you get to see him. Like, he finally... All these characters, I don't think... Like, porn was their first choice. Like, they all had other interests in a way, except for Mark Wahlberg. I guess, like, that was his one thing. But yeah, they all got to do their thing in the end, and that's great.
Ratings? I'd be curious to know yours first.
I'm a big fan of this movie. I think it's really great. When you take into account the cinematography, how stylized it is, I think the actors did a great job. And for as loose as the story is, I don't really mind that. I'm a big fan of these kind of hangout movies like this. I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10, I think. I'm a big fan of this movie.
I think I'm comfortable with that rating as well. I think 9 out of 10 is pretty good. This might be a movie that grows on me a lot as the years go on. From what I can tell and what I've read, I think a lot of people that have seen this movie like consider it a classic now. I mean, how old is the movie? Like, it's 25 years old?
Yeah, just about.
25.
Exactly, almost.
Yeah, I mean, it does a great job. I think it touches a lot of the things that I wanted, which was to feel somewhat uncomfortable and then feel like happy in the end. Like, this movie challenged me a lot, especially like the whole porn thing was just really jarring to me, and I've never seen anything like it. I think it like kind of pays a little bit of homage to like Jack Horner's character and his whole thing of I want to make a porn movie, but I want it to be a real film. Yeah. I think this movie kind of maybe tackles that a little bit.
A little meta.
I love all the characters a lot. I don't know. I think this movie's aged really well, and I think it will age even better as time goes on. And I wish I lived in that moment to know what it was like when this film came out.
Yeah,
but you have to take people's word for it. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I'd be curious to see more Paul Thomas Anderson as well. I want to watch Magnolia very soon.
So do I. I think it's on Netflix. A lot of his movies are on streaming services. I think that I need to go back and rewatch some of the ones I've already seen as well, because this one got better with rewatches, and, you know, maybe those other movies will open up a little bit more.
I think There Will Be Blood is, like, perfect. I think There Will Be Blood is one of my favorites.
My first watch of that movie was so weird. Like, I just did not attach to it. It's like I appreciated, like, wow, this movie is beautiful looking, and, like, Daniel Day-Lewis is, like, incredible. And then, like, it just didn't translate to me, like, emotionally for some reason.
Need to see Phantom Thread, too. I know that one's pretty praised.
Yeah. All his movies are fucking praised like crazy.
Dude, he drinks your milkshake. He drinks it up. Come on.
You do a really good impression of that scene, too. I've heard you do it many times.
Dude, I do think I'm a little bit autistic, so, like, a part of that comes out of me really easily, and I don't mean for it to, but it just it like oozes out of me uncontrollably, and I can't help it.
I drink your milkshake.
I drink it up.
See, I feel like Daniel Day-Lewis is sitting across the table from me.
Yeah, bro. I got range. It's time for my spiel.
It is. I have no idea what direction you're taking us in, and I anticipate it greatly.
I had mentioned to you, I don't think we've ever touched on this genre. And I haven't seen this film, and I'm doing my brother a favor. He said I should do this film soon. He said it's a film, when he watched it, he couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. And I've been wanting to watch it for a long time, and I just have never got around to it. I think it'll be a good choice for the podcast. And I have already, like, really good little fun facts to bring up, even though I haven't even seen the film yet. But we are doing Her with Joaquin Phoenix.
Dude, I'm not going to lie. This was going to be my next recommendation 2 weeks from now.
Hell yeah.
So, fuck yeah.
That worked out pretty well.
You never seen this before?
I've never seen this. I figured you might have already saw it.
I saw it when it came out.
Okay.
But I don't remember anything about it.
I'm really hyped. We haven't talked about Joaquin Phoenix other than, like, reference to Joker, and I'm sure we'll bring him up then. But I've been wanting to watch this one for a long time, and I've needed that push to watch it.
I listened to this podcast called the Sardonicast. Mm-hmm. It's got like these 3 major YouTube film critics, and they all come together and do movies together. And they just reviewed this film recently.
Really?
And they praised it incredibly highly, like saying it was like the best movie of the 2010s. So I can't wait to return to it. The band Arcade Fire does the soundtrack for it, and I'm a fan of them. That sounds like a great idea, man. I cannot wait for that.
Technology. All right. That's all I got. But until next time, I'm peacing out. Get her if you'll do me the honors.
Adios.